Welcome to Men's Anonymous, the podcast where men can be vulnerable and open without fear of judgment. Your host, Daniel Weinberg, leads authentic and unfiltered discussions that explore the challenges and triumphs of modern manhood. Join us as we break down barriers, challenge stereotypes, and redefine masculinity. Men's Anonymous, a safe space for men to lower their shields and share their inner world without judgment.
Hi, on this week's show, we have Richard Poulton, global advocate for men's mental health and founder of Stepping into Courage. Men's Anonymous. Hey, Richie, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Good to see you. It's been a while.
Yeah, you too.
So I think what we'll do today is I'd really like to talk to you about your journey to becoming a global advocate in the men's mental health space. You've got your own personal journey, which I think is really interesting, and I think the audience will get a lot out of what you've been through and how you've managed to overcome a lot of the issues, particularly around anxiety. So why don't we kick off with a little bit of background. We met in Australia quite some years ago, but you're from the UK originally. How did you tell us how you got to Australia?
Yeah, we did meet in Australia. From London originally. Grew up in London, very working class family. Mum was a travel agent. My father was a painter and decorator. So grew up in a council house with my parents. Parents got divorced when I was probably 9, 10, if I remember. My sister moved out. She was 4 years older than me. She moved out when she was 16. She got pregnant quite young. And then I lived with my mum. Just me and my mum lived in this house. Grew up there. And then my mum moved away and I ended up going to live with my dad. So really just a little bit of not really having a secure place, if that makes sense. So moving around a lot. And also had some difficult things happen to me at quite a young age, which I didn't really address till I got a lot older. And then I, believe it or not, went to drama school. I studied drama for 3 years. And I think this was just a way I could escape the anxiety that I had. So I was like wearing a mask, I think, for a lot of that time, and got into my magic tricks. I've become a glass collector at a local social club. So very social, loved being around people, wanted to be the center of attention, but didn't do very well at school because of this. Like my school grades were pretty poor. I pretty much failed my GCSEs. Went to drama school for 3 years. Then I ended up in Cyprus, a little beach town called Ayia Napa, and I was an MC in nightclubs. So not your typical.
No way.
Yeah, you're not your typical sort of.
Seriously.
Yeah, and I had my own. My first real entrepreneurial business was a nightclub called Shagwell's, and it was all based on Austin Powers. I had a dancing mini-me midget, which you probably couldn't get away with nowadays, but it was just fun. And I did that for a few years. And then, mate, I realized I needed to get a real job. So I trained to be a stockbroker in the UK. I did my FCA exams from home, really. So difficult because academically I didn't do very well at school, as I said. So I managed to pass my FCAs after 3 times. And I got a job for a financial company selling FX in probably 2004. Spent 18 months doing that. And then I got headhunted by a company in the same space, a company called Afex. And after 6 months, they offered me New York, Los Angeles, or Sydney to start a business. So I flew to Sydney in 2005, and that's when I started becoming the Asia Pacific managing director of that company and grew out Asia.
Well, what an incredible story. I mean, like from really working class, broken home, I guess self-motivated to get, you didn't get it through doing well at Oxford or Cambridge or something like that, and then end up becoming the CEO of a very successful financial services business. And tell me, what was that point or the catalyst? Because I recall you're around 36 years old and you faced some both personal and business challenges in your life that actually end up exposing what you were masking or suppressing from your youth. So what actually happened there?
So I think, I've always had anxiety from a very young age. I think
when you say anxiety, how does that present itself in you?
So as a kid, it was OCD. So like checking the taps, checking the back doors closed, intrusive thoughts. My mum actually took me to the doctors when I was young because of the thoughts and because of my behavior. And the doctor said he's just got an
When you say, what are
upbringing.
the thoughts? When you say
Like
thoughts, what do you?
just intrusive thoughts, like worried about your mum, something's going to happen to your mum's going to die. If you don't do this, this will happen. Checking the taps, checking the back door, like just things around safety and security. I was very nervous.
Anxiety and fear. There
Yeah,
was a fear
fear.
element. Yeah.
Yeah. And then the doctor said, don't worry, he's just got an over imaginative mind. So that just shows you how in them days there was no real support system. I mean, typically now you would have therapy or you would get some help. So that anxiety was always there. And I just sort of suppressed it, whether it was having a couple of beers a night. My coping mechanisms are really being social, being with people, not being alone. I did that for a very, very long time. As I said, I moved to Australia. Anxiety was always sort of there, but I blocked it out and I never really did any work on any self-work or inner work. Then I got to 36 and just through my business, my best man at my wedding and my 3 groomsmen, they worked with me. And I brought a few of them over from London to start working with me in Sydney. Unfortunately, I was living in LA for a year. And while I was there, they set up a company behind my back, which
paid against you.
yeah, which I respect. I mean, but it still impacted me. I took it personally, rightly or wrongly. It did have an impact on me. I don't have any bad feelings towards them now, but at the time, it was very, very traumatic. I lost all my friends. I lost like my best man and my 3 groomsmen were working, and so they'd gone. So yeah, we went to Supreme Court. It was during that time I was getting migraines a lot. I was not really being present, and then I ended up getting shingles. And like at 36 years old, my doctor's like, "You shouldn't be getting shingles at 36." This is
That's a nervous
yeah.
system situation.
Yeah, it's like chicken pox for adults. It's something you get very
Yeah.
late in
The
until very
herpes. It's a type of
yeah,
herpes
yeah.
virus.
So
Yeah.
yes, so I luckily enough I just had a little rash. I didn't have it near my eyes or anything, but it's something you get when you're a lot older. And he just said, "Are you stressed?" And I'm like, "I don't feel stressed." And what I realized was at this point I needed some support. So my executive coach said, "You're living in your nervous system. You need to get healthy." And I think I was just in denial, thinking I'm fine, nothing's wrong with me. And then after the shingles, I really took a step back and I was burnt out. And I just said, I need to understand what's going on. So my first real act of courage was to see a GP. And the GP said, let's do this little anxiety test. And he come back and said, okay, you've got PTSD and generalized anxiety disorder, which is quite common.
Well, can you just stop there, for example? An anxiety test. How does one get tested for anxiety? What do they do?
So there's like you can do it online, but obviously do it through your GP. They just ask you like 10 questions, I think. That's if I recall. It was a long time ago now. So questions like, do you have negative thoughts? Do you have trouble sleeping? Do you feel like you have an impending doom? Just things which would point to the fact, okay, you may struggle from anxiety. And then from how
what were your symptoms, for example?
Just overthinking, like consistently overthinking. Like we have 85,000
constant chatter in your head, basically.
Yeah. So we have 85,000 thoughts per day, of which 95% we had yesterday. It's the same shit over and over and over again. And I just get stuck in this cycle of overthinking. And then you just over worry. I would just worry about stuff I didn't need to worry about. And the most stupidest thing I would worry about. So the overactive imagination, thoughts. And then I never really had panic attacks, but I got close probably in my 30s. So I can share a story with you if that's okay. When it really happened, I was staying in a hotel in LA and we was having an executive meeting. So there's this like the managing director or CEO, whatever you want to call it, of APAC, and we all fly into LA from all over the world to have a meeting to discuss the business. And the night before the meeting, I'm in my hotel room and I just get this feeling like I'm not going to be able to sleep. Now, I don't know about you, but anxiety for me is crippling.
It's crippling.
Crippling. Like
I suffered from it when I went through my crisis for about 6 months. I pretty much didn't sleep. What you're talking about, those circular thoughts, they just loop. It's like on a loop. And you talk, I don't know, the 85,000 thoughts that you repeated yesterday. Mine were 100% of the same thoughts repeating, and it just go on loops. And literally, you cannot sleep. You're very tense. You're on edge. So, I can understand sleeping. And once you get into that zone, it's very hard to kick yourself take yourself out of it.
100%. It's that fight or flight. And I think with the work I've done the last 10, 15 years, I've really been able to understand a bit more about the science behind it. Because as an A-type personality, I wanted to understand why things like meditation work. I wanted to understand why I feel this way. So going back to the feeling for me is it starts with a thought in my head. And then I have this like rush of, it feels like I'm being boiled from the inside out. Like I physically feel my body heating up.
Get hot,
this sensation. And then sweaty palms, can't catch a breath. And I'm like, I've just got to get out of this hotel room. I've got to get on a flight and get home. And obviously I'm like, I need to leave. And it was that bad because I felt so unsafe. And then it wasn't until I did the work after with my therapist and psychiatrist. And what was happening was, because when I was...
You literally like fight or flight, you literally like jump ship. You like bolted out of there.
I managed to get through it, but I nearly booked a flight, but I managed to get through it. And I always managed to talk myself out around. And something that's really vulnerable, which I don't mind sharing, is one night I had to call my ex-wife, my wife at the time, and leave the phone on with her on a FaceTime call, leave the phone on just so I felt like there was someone with me. And that's quite difficult to share because it's very vulnerable, but that really was when I was in a really bad way. And then through the work and the therapy, what was happening is what we realized was when I was alone at nighttime as an adult, I was having an unconscious reminder of when I was alone as a child and I wasn't very safe. So I was feeling this fight or flight response when I was alone as an adult, which is crazy. And then through the work, we realized that I'm not my thoughts, right? And I think that when I do my speaking now, I talk a lot about meditation and how I've learned to become the consciousness that sits behind my thoughts. And that was a big shift for me. But yeah, at the time, it was pretty bad. So shingles, anxiety, and then my doctor put me on medication. So probably been on and off meds now for the last 15, 20 years.
And what sort of meds are we talking about?
Just antidepressants, so SSRIs, so Prozac. But I've been on them, been off them, been on them, been off them. I think it just depends on the levels. But I find that when I'm on them, and I've been through, honestly, I was very against them for a while, saying these drugs are overprescribed. That it's all in your mind. Come off them within 6 months, a little bit of a relapse. Okay, I need to go back on them. And then I did feel a shift. That for me, I can only speak for myself. They just take the edge off, Dan. It just makes you feel a little bit more. You get anxiety, but not to that level of panic attack.
The way it's described to me, I've not taken antidepressants. I've had anxiety medication before, but very short term. But like the way it's described to me is that if you're not on them, the band on where your moods go quite wide, and that what they do is they keep you steady within a tighter band of emotion. So like you don't get you don't experience the, let's say, the positive highs that you would normally, but you also don't suffer the very negative lows that you would normally. So it keeps you, in a more stable band.
That's fair, and I think that's fair. And I'd recommend anybody listening that they should see a psychiatrist if they can't afford it, or just if they can't afford it, then just see somebody that's a professional. Because I do believe, for me, it took me a long time to find the right dosage, because that band can be here and you can be like a zombie, right? You want the band to be enough so you still feel the highs and you still do feel the lows. And I think that the last 6 months I had a pretty tough time after my nan passed away, and I was in a bit of a low place, but I knew I had to go through the grieving. So I wanted to have a big band because you have to feel the pain. The only way to get through it is to experience that. And that was tough, but I'd rather do that than suppress it.
So you had the diagnosis, found out you had PTSD, you found out that you had general anxiety disorder. I've got a lot of questions here, so I'm going to shoot all over the place. I want to know about what was the plan of action once you're diagnosed with that. What were the practices, or what, obviously I'm guessing you went into therapy, but you talk about meditation, and obviously there's some other techniques that you picked up over time. So I want to understand how you got to that. And I also want to understand, there's the being diagnosed part, but it always comes back to what was the source, understanding the source of why. Like there's the, this is what we can do to deal with it. But I have a sense that if you deeply understand maybe where it comes from originally, you can also learn to maybe become more accepting or understanding of it and be kinder to yourself in a way so that, you're not becoming your worst enemy. So maybe we can, how did you work out why and then the what to do?
So I think that for me, I think probably the lack of stability and that environment when I was a child, just that feeling of being unsafe. Like a few things happened to me growing up, which had an impact on me, which made me feel a little bit unsafe when I was alone. And I think unconsciously you just create these protection mechanisms, as you do without even realizing, to just not put yourself in that environment again. Hence, like when you have generalized anxiety disorder, you're always on high alert. So you're always literally on high alert. You're always looking around and you're always checking behind you. It's very interesting. I didn't realize this stuff till after. So you're consistently aware of your surroundings, which, by the way, is a great thing as well, right? I always say, what if the worst thing that happened to you ended up being the best thing that happened to you? Because I think if it wasn't for my anxiety, I probably wouldn't have had the grit, and I probably wouldn't have had the determination to prove to the world that I can be loved, to prove to the world that I am a good person, that I am good enough. So I think because of some of the trauma that happened to me of not feeling like I'm good enough, it created this unconscious behavior and created grit within me. So once I started to understand a lot of that early trauma or early things that happened to me was what was impacting me as an adult, it doesn't really make it go away, but it does make you more self-aware. So you can start to become more conscious of your behavior. And then the tools that really helped me were really, if I drank alcohol, my anxiety would always be worse the next couple of days after that. So moderation is key. I gave up alcohol recently for 4 or 5 months. I gave up my medication for 4 or 5 months. And I was in a good place, but I found that a couple of beers is okay. I found that I wasn't that social, and that was a part I love. I love being social. So now I think that moderation was key for me. Second is obviously fitness, getting to the gym, looking after yourself, going for a walk. The third was therapy. I think if you just have the therapy and you still go on the piss every night and you don't go to the gym and you don't eat healthy, I don't think you're going to get fixed. You've got to do a lot of things, and you've got to do a lot of things the right way. And then even then,
no silver bullets. It's like it's a package deal.
Yeah, and even then, like, dude, you could be great, and then something could happen, and you just have a bad day, or you have a bad week, and it's just healing's not linear. It's being able to do the work consistently, and I think you can always make the mistake of thinking that you've healed, and then the next day you just get reminded that actually you've got a lot of work to do.
Mm. And I want to get into the practices, because you keep talking about meditation. You've actually spoken at Harvard to global leaders on meditation, and we'll talk about that, because that was a fascinating experience. I want to know, how has this impacted your romantic relationships? So, like, with your wife or ex-wife, and just relationships in general, like your romantic relationships and also other friendships, etc. So how does it play in there, and how do you, I mean, when you have a partner as well that doesn't suffer from what you're talking about, it may be difficult for them to understand, why you behave certain ways. So
my ex-wife, we were together for 22 years. I met her when I was 19. She's my first real girlfriend. I was clubbing. It was when I was emceeing in the nightclub. She stole the microphone from me. That's how we met. And 22 years, love of my life. We had an amazing relationship. And she was just my rock. I think, if I'm honest with you, the fact that she understood me, the fact that she could work with me, really supported me and kept me grounded through the process of building this business. I think it was super important that she was there to just really be someone I could speak to. I think it's so important you have someone you could talk to. I think a lot of this time, especially with men, they don't feel like they've got support. They don't feel like they can, especially to a woman. I mean, having a conversation with a woman with the masculinity around, you want to try and be tough and you want to try and be the man, and you shouldn't show your vulnerability. But I think if doing that helped me, because it allowed her to help me, if that makes sense, versus me trying to suppress it and deal with it on my own. In terms of the ups and downs in the relationship, I think because of all the work I've done, with whether it's therapy or just inner work, and there's still so much more I need to do, I started to realize, and I just finished a master's degree in organizational psychology at INSEAD. So I did that because I really wanted to understand the brain. And I learned a lot about myself through that process. And the unconscious behavior I did probably didn't support the relationship with my ex. And a lot of that's being driven by unconsciously wanting to be seen, wanting to be validated, wanting to be loved. So things like being over honest, oversharing, things I probably shouldn't share because I don't want to be a bad boy. I have to be a good boy. So just oversharing things which are not going to support the relationship, but it clears my conscience. Then I push it
Can
on a
you,
project.
can you give me an example of an oversharing?
Maybe.
Okay.
Just, I don't know, like, let's say you're some mate's Bucks party weekend or stag party or bachelor party, if you, any American viewers, and you go to a strip club, it happens in this environment. I don't know, maybe a girl taps you on the ass because that's what they do. They get paid to do that. That just happens. You don't need to share that. But me unconsciously, because of the program I had of having to be a good boy, because when I was younger, I felt like I was a bad boy. I would say to my ex, "Hey, babe, I was in a strip club and some bird slapped my ass." She's like, "What are you telling me for?" I just thought, then that's not healthy. But because I was immature and I didn't do the work, I was projecting my stuff onto her, which I think is not healthy in a relationship. And that's not the reason we got divorced. But I do think that we've all got our own shadow work we need to do. And now I've done some of that work. I wouldn't act that way again because it doesn't help anybody.
So, and you got meditation, sounds like out of all the practices, has had the most positive impact on you and changed your life. Can you tell us how you got into it and why it's been so positive for you?
Yes. So I was, my executive coach at the time said, you need to learn to meditate. And at the time, I'm like, I can't sit still for 5 minutes. So there's no way I can meditate. He said, just start off small and see how you go. So I started doing it. And then he does an hour a day. I'm like, an hour a day? That's insane. I can't sit still for 5 minutes. And then 2 days ago, I did an hour and 20 minutes, right? So over the years, I've learned to be able to do more. But when I started, I couldn't do more than 20 minutes. So I started doing it every day. And then I was fortunate enough to be introduced to this teaching monk called Monk Burin. I met him in Bangkok. He does a lot of work with Jeffrey Sachs. He's based in New York and between Bangkok and does a lot with the UN and Sustainable Development Goals. So he's the monk I flew to Boston from Bangkok to Harvard. So I was lucky to spend some time with him. And he taught me the middle way meditation. And it's a Buddhist form. It's a Buddhist meditation where he says it come from, they say it come from the Buddha and when he was under the Bodhi tree. And it's focusing 2 fingers above your belly button, focusing on that point there in the center of your body and putting your attention there. And very similar to any other meditation, whether you're listening to music or it's guided or you focus on your breath, or it's like a TM meditation where they say a mantra. This is just focusing on that point. But the thing that stuck with me.
Your eyes are closed, open?
Closed, eyes closed, yeah. But
and you focus 2 fingers above your belly button, you just focus on that.
Put that attention there, yeah. And then when you're distracted, you come back to that. But I think it can be one point of focus, but that's what he taught me. But the thing that really stuck in my mind, and I love this, he says, every day we wash our bodies. We have a shower, we have a bath, and we're taught that from a very young age. But every day we need to wash our mind. We need to clean our mind. If you don't have a shower or you don't wash your body for a week, you're going to be stinky, you're going to be dirty. It's the same for your mind. If your parents was to teach kids to meditate every day, then they would meditate as an adult. I mean, your parent don't tell me now, Richard, have a shower. You just do it, right? So I really love that. It becomes a habit. So he said, do it every day for 30 minutes and see how you go. So I did it every day for 30 minutes. And then I had this like pretty profound thing that happened. I wasn't very spiritual before this. I was probably agnostic. And then I had quite a profound experience in meditation. And I was like, oh my God, this is unbelievable. I spoke to my teaching monk and he's like, okay, Richard, just calm down, just observe. Remember, you observe.
Explain. No. Let's focus on this for a second. Firstly, like, how does it make you feel after doing meditation for a prolonged period of time? Like once you do the practice, because I mean, I've done meditation at different points in my life. I tend to do them when like, okay, we're having a tough time. I'm going to do this for a while and just get me to a peaceful state. And then I do other things that get me to, a peaceful state, so meditative. But like the actual practice of meditation, they say that you need to do it for a period of time and then you really start feeling the effects of it.
Yes.
So talk us through there's like that spiritual moment.
So there's a recent study by Sarah Lazar from Harvard Medical School, and they studied a group of 60 men. They had them meditate every day for 30 minutes for 6 weeks. after 6 weeks, they'd recheck the MRI scan, and the actual amygdala in their brain associated with fight or flight shrunk in size. Yeah, this stuff works. There's also studies that show that regular meditators, their brain doesn't shrink as they age. As we age, our brains naturally shrink. When they've tested long-term meditators, their brain hasn't. So there's a lot of scientific research about it. And for me, it was, I don't want to be too woo-woo, but I was meditating for 20 minutes, and it was about 20 minutes into a 30-minute meditation. And all of a sudden, I thought somebody shone a bright torch in my eyes. I thought somebody opened up the window or the blinds or in the temple, and the light come in. So it freaked me out. It went completely white, and it felt like someone dropped a pebble in my stomach, and this vibration, like this feeling of vibration. So I opened my eyes, and it was pitch black. I just freaked out. But you can see me saying now my hairs are sticking up. So I spoke to the monk. He said, "Okay, that's great. That's great. That means you're moving through the right processes. You're going into the right state of mind. You're disconnecting from the thoughts. You're disassociating yourself with the body." And I'm like, wow. And that's probably happened 3 times in 6 years. So it doesn't happen a lot. But when it happened, I'm like, okay, there's much more to this than meets the eye.
Insane. So, and then talk us through the experience of speaking. I think it was like 200 global CEOs from around the world at Harvard, and you spoke to them about your journey and the benefits of meditation. You took them through a meditation. Is that correct?
Yes. Yeah, correct.
Talk us through how you got there and how that all happened.
So I'm part of a network called the YPO, which I know you are, Dan, and I hope you don't mind me sharing that. But that's where we met a few years ago, and I go there every year. And one of the best years I had there was a couple of professors really talking about vulnerable stories, and I spoke to the program coordinator, and I said, "Hey, listen, this has been taken really well. We need more people to speak about vulnerability." So look, I had a pretty traumatic childhood. I'm happy to share my story about my trauma, but also how I deal with anxiety as a CEO. So many CEOs have anxiety and depression, but they don't talk about it. I think we should share and start to speak about this. And she loved the idea. And then we planned it maybe a year out. I then spoke to the Ven Burin and said, how would like to come to Harvard? And they was blown away. I mean, they'd love to get in front of Harvard. And I think that I love the idea of, he even said to me, like, they really want the whole world to meditate. And their whole theory is world peace through inner peace. And he really believes his dream is to get the UN General Assembly to meditate. That's what he's working to try and do before they have a meeting. I think he's dreaming, but it would be lovely if he could do that. I'd love it to happen. So when I said he can get to Harvard, he was very excited. So he flew up, yep. And then I did my speech to the CEOs at the business school. Then we did a 20-minute meditation where he taught them the middle way meditation. But I think this was really, Dan, when I realized this was my purpose, this was my calling. It was probably, how long was it now? Maybe 7-8 years ago now. And I've been doing the work for a while, but it was profound. Like how it impacted these people, like grown men coming up to me saying they finally felt seen.
Wow.
Grown men saying, I've never, ever had anyone to share this with. Like, you don't understand. I don't feel like I'm alone anymore. And that for me was just huge. And that really set me on this path. I still do my fintech stuff in Stanford, but really on this path into sort of step into courage, this sort of this movement I've started.
Yeah, so that's a good segue. So you've created this platform called Stepping into Courage. Why don't you talk us a little bit about what the platform is?
So it's called Step into Courage, and it's really just the beginning of something that I'm hoping to grow over the next few years. It's not something I'm investing all of my time in because I've got my business, but the idea is I want it to organically grow. And it's really, the idea is to inspire men to share vulnerable stories, to share stories about themselves that they wouldn't normally share. So we've created a men's group. There's a members club here in Singapore, a bit like a Soho House. It's called 1880. And I've got 40 men that meet in groups of 7 or 8 every month. And they meet and have a forum and they talk about business, personal and family. And I create a structure around non-judgmental, and you can only talk from experience. So it's really giving men an opportunity to talk from their heart. And it's not a boys' club, no alcohol involved. It's really sitting there. You can go for drinks after, but they have to be present and they have to be prepared to go deep and do the work.
So how long is the session every month? Is it 3 hours?
2.5, 3 hours. Yeah. So we do a thing called MEPS, how you feeling mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually. Then they'll all give like a 5-minute update on their last month. And then we'll see if anybody has anything they want to present to the group. And then you don't get advice, it's shared experiences from the rest of the members.
I've come across, obviously doing this, coming across a lot of similar type movements / programs that are happening all over the world now, and which is fascinating because you're all doing something very similar. And what I always like to ask is, can you give me some maybe some anecdotal feedback or like an anecdotal story on how this is impacting the men that are participating in these groups? So a lot of them have never done this before. It's their first go at it, and it's a big jump from not really making yourself vulnerable, exposing yourself to things you've been carrying or suppressing for obviously, lifetime. And then suddenly they're talking to, another 7 strangers who they're now forming deeper bonds with because they're really just revealing things that they've never revealed before. So
hence why step into courage, because it is a courageous thing to do. And I think vulnerability is an act of power. I think it shouldn't be seen as a weakness. And certainly my older generations, like my father and my grandparents, this would be seen as a weakness, unfortunately. And if I come over to Asia, we're so far behind in Asia than it is in the Western world around dealing with mental health and talking and being vulnerable. So I mean, I won't share on behalf of some of the other participants, but I can share on behalf of me. And it's just I think once you start to open up, it's amazing. If someone opens up to you, I think it's like quite tribal. It's like if someone shares
an invitation. You're basically giving them an invitation to open up in reciprocity. They now feel like I feel safe because now you've shown me yours. Now I've got to show you mine.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
A little bit like that.
Yeah, I agree. And it's
before you were doing these groups, did you, and outside of, let's say, YPO, amongst your friends, your tribe, how have you been in, I'm sure today it's a little bit different. How were you in that process of when you were going through the suffering with the anxiety and all the stuff you were dealing with? How much did you share with your friends?
Yeah, that's a great question. I didn't. And that's the problem. Imagine being the CEO of a financial company of 100 traders on the floor, men, brokers, like pinstripe suits. You don't. And hence why I burnt out, hence why I got shingles. I had my Andrea, my ex, who was amazing for me, but we need more than that. We need a tribe. We need a group of men that are there for us. Or women, but we just need people around us that can support us. And I think that it was only when I did the work with my executive coach, and he spoke to me in one of our first sessions, and he said, Richard, one day you will share your story. And I was like, there is no way I'm sharing this story. This is so personal. He said, Richard, one day when you've done the work and you're brave enough, because you can help others. And cut to 5 years later, I'm standing on Harvard. So he was right. And I think it's having the confidence to step into your courage and start to share. And then it doesn't seem as alien. But then on the flip side, Dan, you've got to share with the right people. You've got to share in the right environment. I mean, as an example, I was with a friend of mine who's very open, and we was having dinner maybe 3 years ago, and at the dinner table, and there was an older gentleman at the table who's from an older generation, and I was chatting to my friend, and I'm like, mate, we've got so many great memories. I love you, buddy. I love you. And that moment was really nice. And the older gentleman said, all right, guys, calm down. What sort of environment are we talking about now? Is this a gay party? Do you see what I mean? So you've got to really choose, and no judgment on that person, but I think it's very important that you find your tribe where you can really be vulnerable without being shut down.
Yeah, absolutely. Richard, fantastic. Thank you so much for your time. I mean, there's so much to unpack there, and such an important work you're doing. As I finish up the podcast, I like to ask my guests 5 quick questions. So if you will entertain me, who would you like to say sorry to given the chance?
okay, when I got this, I struggled because I was going to give a cliche answer, but I think it's true, probably myself. I think that, man, with the work I've done, my therapist, it's really, I forgot about the little Richie inside of me, that little boy, and it's really him forgiving me for abandoning him. That makes
Mm.
sense. Right? When I do a lot of inner child work, it's like, I'm here for you. I'm sorry I let you go. I'm here to protect you now. I'm here to make sure you're going to be okay. Because if you let the little boy drive the bus, you start making bad decisions, in my
Mm.
experience.
Absolutely. It's so interesting you talk about the inner boy, because it's something we don't really talk about, but the reality is we all still have that little boy inside of us, no matter how old you get.
Agreed.
What are you proud of being or doing in your life?
Probably one of the things I'm proud of is when we sold the company. I didn't own the company, but I did quite well at the transaction. I did a Zoom call and I paid my sister's mortgage off for her. I sent my mum and dad some money. I looked after my niece. I looked after my ex's family. So just being able to give back, coming from very working class, I'm really proud that I was able to do that. And also, I'm proud of the work I'm doing now, the Step Into Courage stuff and the public speaking. Because if I can, I mean, look, I've got 500 followers on Instagram. It's not huge. But I don't care if it can affect one person. That's what I care about, is having an impact on people.
Nice. When did you receive kindness while needing it most and expecting it least?
Probably when a few months ago, I had a bit of a nightmare. My anxiety got pretty bad, I think, because my nan passed away. A few things happened, but I could deal with it, but I just wasn't my best self. And I found that I was pretty much not being as social. It never really impacts my work, believe it or not. It just impacts me after work. I can seem to switch off at work. So it impacted me socially. And really, people could tell. And everyone come out of the woodwork, including yourself, Daniel. People that come out of the woodwork and just texts. And I wake up to maybe 15 texts, thinking of you, buddy. How are you? So just people that you wouldn't normally expect. And this again shines a torch on people understand what it's like to feel alone. People want you to know that you're not alone. So yeah, there was many, many people that were there for me, and I didn't feel like I deserved it, but I just didn't expect it.
I could sense that when we were communicating, and I've been there before. So it was really important for me just for you to know that if you want to talk, you've got someone there to talk to, and just that alone is enough of, oh, there's someone who's there who sees me and who's there for me, and like,
Yeah,
and it's hard, and I could see you were really like let's say crawling through the mud.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I think it's the lack of communication. Probably I was replying in short messages. We wasn't organizing the time for a catch up. It was, you could read between the lines, right? That there was something that wasn't right.
Of course. No, of course. I mean, when I was going through it, you're also hiding
Mm,
because you're a little bit ashamed. You don't feel good about yourself, and you don't want to put that on others, and you don't want to have that. You don't want to show it, and you also don't want to have that energy with people. You don't want people to, feel sorry for you. Or
agreed.
what did your mother or father teach you that you frequently remind yourself of?
I think growing up in the UK in the 80s and 90s, it's just resilience, right? Just that I think both my parents, very difficult upbringings themselves. They had to go through a lot growing up. So they did the best that they could. But I also know that my dad, like, is just always like, it's only money, son, things like that. Or don't worry, boy, you'll be all right. Or always looks on the bright side of things. So just that optimism. And my mum as well, after what they've been through, it's pretty amazing that they can always be so optimistic. So I find that quite inspiring, just to always look on the bright side of things and be optimistic.
Very good. And the final one is, which I'm very curious, what's your superpower?
Wow. Probably disarming people. I think I've got a very natural ability of making people feel safe and comfortable around me. And I don't know if it's something you can be taught. I honestly don't. I think you're either born with it or you're not born with it. Luckily I was born with it. And just having maybe it's my vulnerability, maybe it's being comfortable to open up. But yeah, I think probably that, helping people come out of their shell and be their true authentic self.
Beautiful. Richie Poulton, thank you. And I wish you lots of luck, but just lots of positive energy going your way for what you're doing with Stepping Into Courage. You're obviously having quite an impact. It's also quite a scalable model, I think. You could roll that out all over Asia. You got it in Singapore now, but I'm sure you could roll it out into, many other different countries. I think you're doing great work, and as always, a real pleasure to spend some time with you.
You too, Dan.
That's it for this episode of Men's Anonymous. Thank you for listening. For more information on the Men's Anonymous podcast, including resources discussed in the show, visit mensanonymous.com. Join us next time as host Daniel Weinberg provides a non-judgmental space for men to voice their innermost feelings and thoughts.